Caucus meeting. Shannon, would you call the roll?
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Post?
Here.
Mrs. Labby? Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Scafidi?
Here.
Mr. Barr, or Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Okay, first on our agenda is a presentation from Chuck Bonacci regarding the Environmental Commission.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor Scavini.
Good evening.
It's an honor to be here. Shannon, thank you for scheduling this.
Tell another joke, it's going to take a second.
Okay.
Two chickens across the road.
So ultimately, this today's presentation relates to a conversation that Shannon had with me last year about a question she had from a resident. What's acceptable to go into the recycling program? That was the question. And the Environmental Commission's been trying to figure out ways to better communicate that. And Simone from the Service Department was kind enough to get us behind the scenes at Waste Management's Recycling Center. And that recycling center is in Akron, Ohio. So members of the commission went down there, and our council rep, David Post, visited. And we got to see every nook and cranny of a recycling center. If you haven't been to one, it's basically an indoor landfill that has value. So today's presentation is, that's the introduction. That's what I just did. So this is going to work. Awesome. Thank you, Mark, for setting this up for us. This is just a little presentation that I put together with the help of the other commissioners. And the theme that we've heard for many years is reduce, reuse, and recycle. And today's presentation is going to be specifically about recycling. But there are things that we could do to reduce the burden of recycling. And there are lots of things that can be reused. And the idea of reducing and reusing cuts down on the cost. Ultimately, these recycling programs are hugely expensive. When your material is picked up at your yard, it's transported to a transfer center. It's unloaded there, moved around with some loaders, reloaded into a different truck, taken to a recycling sort center, unloaded there, moved around again with loaders, and then the process starts. So it's hugely expensive. There's lots of fuel that's involved. There's lots of energy. These places are giant. So why do we have two bins? It's simple. We have a trash bin, that's the one with the green lid, and we have a recycle bin. That's the one with the yellow bin, or yellow lid. And what we put in those bins makes a huge difference to how this whole thing works. Now, there are some parts of our city, condo associations, apartment buildings, other group residential centers that do not have these bins. And since they don't have those bins, their landlord, their property manager might not be involved in a recycling program. So for those residents, we have a recycling center, drop-off center that's located between our swimming pool and the bus garage. And that's larger containers that residents could drop off materials to be recycled. Now, it's key that there are lots of things that can be recycled, right? There's a difference between scrap and recycling. There's a difference between trash and recyclable. The waste management program that the city contracted with specifically is interested and has the capacity to recycle cardboard, cardstock, paper, glass bottles, glass containers, plastic bottles, plastic jugs, plastic tubs. Did I get it all? Metal. Aluminum and steel cans, basically the metals that food products and beverage products come in. Not metal from like a car, not metal from a construction site. The system that they have in place to catch all this stuff and to sort it out uses lots of cool parts of science. The first part of cool science that they use is gravity. The glass is the first item that's extracted. The glass is fragile. As it cracks, it falls below. The glass is probably the thing that we all get to benefit from that's recycled, and we don't even know it. All the glass that comes out of the Waste Management Recycling Center goes into the paint that's on our highways and roadway striping programs. That reflectivity comes from people that recycle glass jars and bottles. Okay. The marketability of recycling. I hear from folks all the time. Daisy, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. Do we still do not recycle the cap from the plastic bottle? Are they accepting this now?
So if the cap's on the bottle, it's going to get caught in the recycle. It's going to go with the bottle, and it's going to end up in the right place. If the cap is separate, it's going to fall out of the system, and it's going to end up in like the trash, basically.
Okay.
The reason why is the machine can only detect things that are larger than a business card.
Yeah.
So if anything's smaller than a business card, it'll just fall through the garbage. So that's why if it's attached to it, the machine will pick it up and take it.
Okay.
So similarly with paper products, if I were to drop this in my recycle bin, it would get recycled. If I were to shred it and then put it in the recycle bin, it's too small for the system to work. Okay. So shredded documents, like we had the shredding event last month, that's an important program to have because all of that material gets recycled after it was shredded. So we're able to protect personal identified information and get it recycled. Whereas if we try to shred it in advance, their system doesn't allow for those small pieces. Okay? So what's fascinating is most of the recycled material stays in our region. It stays in the Midwest, Northeast Ohio. So right now the values are pretty high. 3-4 years ago, the values for recycled material were non-existent. In other words, Waste Management lost money on everything they tried to recycle. Now they're doing really well because manufacturers have figured out that labor costs, for example, paper industry, labor costs to harvest and cut new trees is extremely high compared to if you're able to get good product through the recycling system. Waste Management uses this term, product. They're viewing what others would look at trash, and I have a picture of a big mound, I think, coming up, as valuable. Okay, it's their gold. And the whole system is designed, so I mentioned the first thing is gravity. The glass falls out, the big stuff goes on. It's filtered. There's a big conveyor and a small conveyor. So it's getting your cardboard out that's big, and then this other smaller things that fell down from the first set of, it's like a calendar, like you're straining pasta. The first thing that comes out goes directly to the cardboard. Then the glass broke off, it goes to the bottom, that's in a pile that's gonna get ground up and be part of paint. Plastics and cans are going on another set of conveyor belts. It's fascinating how all this stuff works. Ultimately, the marketability of these products, from the left to the right, we have the paper stock, the cardboard, baled up. Those are like 4 by 6 foot bundles. They're giant. Next, we have the plastic bottles that are like your laundry detergent bottles, your coffee cans. And then to the right, we have the compacted aluminum. The aluminum's the one product that they actually recycle, where the 100% of the aluminum they recycle becomes 100% of new cans. So old soda and beer cans become new soda and beer cans. The rest of this stuff, it kind of could become something else. The cardstock's going to become other paper products. The plastic could become plastic lumber. It could become more plastic bottles. It could become car parts. Sometimes when it gets into a certain element, it's not going to be recycled after it hits those end stages of things. So we can't take a plastic car bumper to Waste Management for them to recycle. So items that can be recycled, the city has it listed clearly on their website. The gist of it is it's flattened cardboard. So if we get things delivered to us, flatten out the boxes. I didn't realize that if I take the box that I got and I put all the soda cans inside, that creates a problem when they try to recycle it. Because now all the cans are caught in the box. Okay? So when you get your soda cans, your beer cases, your Amazon packages, flatten those out before you put them into the bin. Okay? You don't have to get the tape off of it, the labels, just flatten it out. Okay? That's going to save space in your bin. Plastic jugs, containers, if they have lids, put the lids right back on. Metal cans from food and beverages. That's what's recyclable. What's not recyclable? Plastic bags. Okay. I know a lot of folks are required to have their bins inside their garage, and maybe there's a concern that it's going to stink, right? Because it might be trash. Inside that entire recycling center, I was expecting it to smell like a landfill. It didn't smell that bad. The reality is there's not much organic material going into that process because most people are filtering it out. Now, if we're worried about the bin smelling in our garage, it's just a reminder that we should rinse out our cans, rinse out our jars, and make certain that we're not putting food and liquids into that bin, okay? The good news is there's even a vendor, a city guy, a city employee, not a city employee, a company within the city that just launched that's washing those bins and sanitizing them, which is pretty cool. So if you have that concern and you have a dirty bin, there's somebody that can help you out. It also takes just a few minutes to wash it yourself if it gets a little stinky. The other big contaminant is plastic bags. Like you go to the grocery store, you go to the pharmacy, you get those plastic bags. Their program doesn't do the plastic bags. In fact, the plastic bags are destructive to their equipment, and their first set of labor costs, once people are touching these things by their hands, is to extract the plastic bags. Now it's going down faster than Laverne and Shirley brewed beer and faster than Lucy and Desi made chocolates. It's going down that conveyor belt like wicked quick. And every time that something goes by, these guys have the opportunity to stop the line, and which is pretty cool in manufacturing, that they're empowered to make a good decision and stop the line. But there's only 4 stations of people to catch all this stuff, and that conveyor is zipping through because as they're waiting, there's a whole other truck bringing more material to them. Other things that are not recyclable: construction waste, yard waste, garden hoses, storm pipes. It's just going to get thrown away. So knowing that it's just going to get thrown away, just put it in the bin with the green lid and get it to the right place before you're paying somebody to do it. The other thing I always thought was, I thought at the transfer centers, they look at the regular trash and try to extract things that are valuable. They don't have time for that. That truck unloads, that transfer center, the trash is going to be there for about a shift. And they're loaded it into other larger container trucks to get that trash to the landfill. So there's no one looking at the trash to see if there's anything of value in there. They're only looking at the recyclable stuff. So there's a myth that they're going through the regular trash to find things of value, extract metals. That's not happening. The only way to get an aluminum can recycled is to put it in the recycle bin. The only way to get plastic recycled is to put it in the plastic bottle, put it in the recycle bin. Other things that you shouldn't put in there are like your inflatable pools, your garden hoses, and we saw all this stuff in that pile of material that they have to pay to get out of there. Small appliances, they're not recyclable. Even though there's a lot of metal on that, it's not recyclable. Okay? Maybe old lawnmower blades, brake pads, brake drums, not recyclable. That stuff is probably best as scrap. So there's a scrapyard not so far away on Freeway Drive in Macedonia. So if you end up with a lot of metal, different kind of metal than I usually talk about, but if you end up with metals and you want to get it to the right place so it doesn't go to landfill, take it to the scrap guy. Maybe he gives you $1, maybe he gives you $5. It's all dependent on what the prices of the materials are getting in the marketplace for what you're going to get. But things that are not food and beverage containers that happen to be metal cannot go into the recyclables. Plastic bags, the grocery stores in town have the bins to collect the bags right from you. But better yet, maybe start using those your own bag and bring it in. There's a question about why are the trucks identical? Like our bins are labeled green and yellow, but the trucks are not labeled green and yellow. The reality is the same truck that picks up our recyclables on Tuesday might be picking up another town's trash on Wednesday. And it's up to the driver to know what he's picking up. But since the trucks are identical, I think some folks see the same trucks and they think, oh, it's all going to the same place. It's going to the same transfer center. The left half of the building, for example, is the recycle half. The right half of the building is the trash half. The driver knows what route he was running. He was running the recycle route. He's going to get it to the recycle half of the building. It's going to get onto the transfer center. It's a myth that they're just, when they hit capacity, they're just putting it all in the landfill. In fact, when they hit capacity at this recycle center, they bundle it up to use it another day, to go through it another day. So they're able to put it through the baler to compress it, and then they can feed it back into the system when they are maybe fully staffed, or if there's maybe there's a backlog from a holiday week. As they get through that backlog, they're able to take the material that they put aside, baled up, and get it into the recycled stream. Lots of money. I talked about, it's picked up by one truck, it's taken to the transfer center, picked up, loaded into another truck. That truck's dumped out at the sorting center. There's another loader. That loader feeds it into the sorting machinery. That sorting equipment's big, giant electric motors, and it's huge, huge. And they're using science like gravity, optical sensors, and electricity to sort, along with some humans that pull out the stuff that didn't get through that. There were about 28 people working in that recycle center. In addition to actually working on the recycle line, there were other folks that were maintaining equipment, but there were 28 of them actually working. Okay. Forkload loads the sorted material that's been baled right into trucks that go to the manufacturing centers. What can we do to reduce? Plastic bags, switch them to reusable ones, or at least recycle them at the bins that are at the store. Consider composting. It helps with your garden, right? Relatively simple. Trying to figure out ways to maybe have a composting program. Some other communities have it that are curbside, and some communities have like centralized drop-off centers. I'm certain folks from the garden club will tell us we could all compost it. It would be really easy. But that's like a science experiment. It's like the guys that are microbrewers telling me I could brew beer. I don't necessarily know I'd want to drink it. I don't know if I trust my own compost. But there are programs out there. We're working on communicating with those folks. Reusable glass water bottles and that kind of stuff. And maybe choosing products without packaging. And then some of the online retailers have like a pick a day to get your products delivered. So like my Amazon day is Friday. Shouldn't have just said that out loud. It'll be switched for the Porch Pirates. But it comes once a week. All in one big box instead of a bunch of little boxes. Sure, it's exciting to get a package every day, but it makes more sense to get one package a week. And here's the Amazon thing. Other retailers have similar consolidated delivery services. Okay? The end of the day, we have lots of money invested. The waste management contract's significant. Waste management, they're in the business of making money. Our residents that care about recycling are in the business of doing the right thing. It takes a collective attitude of what the right thing is to get the right materials recycled. So without a concerted effort of what goes in which bin, the whole system could kind of collapse upon itself. Right now, there's good value in it. Right now, the system works. In fact, they're building a whole new recycle center, investing several $1 million, hundreds of millions of dollars in this new recycle center. They wouldn't be doing that if they were just tossing it into landfill. That's the big message is we choose what we put in the bin. If we put the right stuff in the bin, that's great. That helps. That on our end, we did the right thing. That helps waste management get the materials to the right places so they can be recycled. But then there's a component of like reduce what you're using too. Any questions? David, did I miss anything from this whole presentation?
Actually, the other thing I want to add in, that styrofoam.
Oh yeah.
Not recyclable. So one of the questions we said on there to the guy was, every styrofoam thing I have has a recycle stamp in it. And he says, well, find me a place that's recycling it, because they don't exist. So he says lots of things that are marked recyclable are absolutely not recyclable, that you want to make sure that you throw it out. And he said the big mistake that people do is they buy a new television, right? What do? You get the styrofoam in there, you take the TV out, you throw the styrofoam back in the box, and you put the box on the curb. The problem is now that machine looks at that as cardboard, but that styrofoam's tucked in there. The styrofoam cannot go through the machine, and it messes up their machines, and it slows them down, and then they got to repair it, and the styrofoam is really bad for the machine. So take the styrofoam, throw it in your garbage, and then put that cardboard onto the street. I've been doing it wrong. And the other thing I want to add in, and I think you may have mentioned it, I just want to clarify, a lot of people buy those blue garbage bags for recycling. So what do? They take all their recycling, put it in there, they take that blue bag, tie it up, and they throw it into the recycle bin. The problem with that is, again, those bags themselves are not recycled. They cannot get recycled. So that bag might make its way to the garbage landfill because all the stuff inside it is recyclable. But so what I do now is I take my garbage and instead of tying it up in a bag, I just dump it in my recycle bin, and then if the bag is bad, I just throw the bag out. So everything's got to be loose. But that's all I wanted to add. But it was a great presentation, and it was amazing to see it all happen.
Yeah.
And,
And there was like cardboard, so it's all about contamination. So like the styrofoam, the plastic sheet that goes on the front of the TV and packaging, all that stuff that's not recyclable through their program. If it gets through their system and it ends up baled, when they get it to the paper company is not going to, they might reject it. If they reject it, it ends up going into the trash on that end. If they, so it's all about the contamination and good product on their end to get it actually recycled. You know, so if your intentions are to do good, recycle it. But if you're not going to take the effort to sort and to keep things loose in the bin, you're honestly you're probably better off to, for those that care, that are trying to recycle, you're probably better off just tossing it in the landfill. Because if we are putting contaminants right into their system, it's going to cause them to just throw away larger quantities than you would have thrown away.
right.
Okay.
Thank you, Chuck. That was good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is items for discussion. Are there any items for discussion this evening? Hearing none, we go to audience participation. Shannon, can you call the first person?
There is none for caucus.
Okay. Pending legislation, ordinance 61, 2022. An ordinance adopting the tax budget for the city of Twinsburg for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2023, and submitting the same to the county auditor and declaring an emergency. This has been read twice already. This is something we do every summer at this time. We need to get a tax budget in to the county by 7/15. The reason for the emergency is that allows us to get it there in 2 days. Are there any questions from council? Okay, all right. Ordinance 71, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the city to enter into an agreement for the acquisition of a 2022 John Deere 50G excavator and declaring an emergency. This is at a cost of $56,300 with a trade-in that is going to reduce the cost of this piece of equipment for the service department by $17,000. The reason for the emergency is we want to buy it as soon as possible because we're expecting a 25% price increase within the next quarter, and we want to get this in now. Are there any other questions regarding ordinance 71, 2022? Okay. Now we're going to move on to unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. Does anybody have unfinished new business or miscellaneous they'd like to discuss? Okay. With that, we're going to adjourn. We'll start the regular council. Excuse me.
You have to excuse.
That happens in the council meeting or in the caucus.
Okay.
So
Right.
no worries.
I'm ahead of myself on the sheet.
Okay, I flipped it over to read those too.
Correct.
So
Okay,
at this time,
thanks.
we're going to adjourn the caucus meeting, and we'll start the regular scheduled council meeting at 7:30. If you'd like to speak or address council, there's a sign-up sheet at the podium. Please sign, and Shannon will call your name when it's your turn. Thank you.